All right, so Tracy, welcome to the Funnels to Income podcast. So first of all, before we get started, why don't you tell us who you are and how you got started with WishList Member?
Well, thanks, Mac. I appreciate you having me. Again, my name's Tracy Childers, and I'm the co-founder and president of WishList Products, and we create software for WordPress for membership sites, specifically called WishList Member. We started WishList Member about 12 years ago, but I kind of had I guess maybe a unique upbringing. When I was a kid, I was exposed to things that are still applicable to today. So, right now, you talk about how the internet is exploding, right? And I mean, and that's not even really news to us now. I mean, everybody just thinks of the internet as just second nature. And what I think that you're seeing right now is just the rise of online education, specifically with all the way that the world is changing. People that hadn't even given a thought to online education are now saying, hey, this is just going to be a standard. And also people working remotely. So when I was a kid, I'll say that right now, a lot of times we talk about internet marketing, but way back when I was a kid, we were already talking about information marketing. And so, of course, back then the internet did not exist, but people were still selling information. Obviously, we've been selling books and audio recorded messages. Used to be on audio cassette tapes,
Yes, I
even
remember
8-tracks, and now vinyl's coming back. But in terms of information products, most people sold them either kind of your mainstream bookstore, and but then they also sold kind of niche products through methods like direct mail, and also in live events. So around the time when I was maybe about 10 years old or so, my father was always an entrepreneur, and he got into that world of information marketing. And specifically, he was a real estate investor. And so he started building up a pretty large real estate portfolio, and built his, I guess, his empire back then through the real estate means. And, he was teaching the local real estate investors club, and naturally just more and more people wanted to know about what he had done. And so that kind of took him into a role where he became he started traveling, I was going to say all over the nation, but really like all over the world, teaching people how to invest in real estate. And so I had kind of a unique situation because I was directly exposed to that, and I guess maybe it just sort of changed my way of thinking a bit. In just the sense that what's possible in terms of selling information. Back then there weren't really just a lot of really good examples, because saying, oh, I'm teaching people how to invest in real estate, and then people started teaching people how to invest in the stock market, and now all the way up to where we're at now, people are teaching people all kinds of things. I know you're big on YouTube, and like, my goodness, just look at that. I mean, you can learn anything and everything now. So it's really just kind of an exciting time for us, in my opinion, just the way things have just exploded, and specifically with teaching information.
So you mentioned that you were exposed to this world of marketing at a very young age. So what at that time really sort of like inspired you to think about creating a software that could impact us today the way it is?
Yeah. Wow. That's a good one. I'd like to say that I knew it all along, what I would probably be doing.
Nice.
And, but the truth is, you're kind of always feeling your way to get a little bit further along. And so I knew, going into college, that I was probably not going to go the traditional route of what most people did. I went to college, a small private Christian college, and I got a degree in marketing, and after 4 years, here I was with a college degree in marketing, you know, and I'm thinking, I don't really know hardly anything about marketing. And so it was at that point in time when I learned some pretty good lessons. And I remember specifically having a conversation with my dad and just talking about, you know, being a little bit uneasy, not sure what my future held for me. And here I am going into the working world, and I'm going to look for a job. And I started doing some interviews, and I had some opportunities, and just to get maybe just that corporate route and work my way up through the corporate world. And then he and I decided to start a business at that time. And it was basically, it was an information product business. I mean, we were running radio ads. We would do interviews and talk about this thing. And then it's kind of like the whole thing you teach in funnels, right? You're turning the funnels to income. It was back then, it just wasn't internet. You know, it was like we would do a radio interview, which was actually similar to what we do on podcasts. And then we would spend money to run it on like AM radio stations. And then people would call in and they would order like the lead magnet, and then we would send them the information, and then we would follow up with them about the opportunity. So it was really cool. And then as I started going into that, and we were running the business, I'll just tell you, Matt, it was hard. I mean, it was really hard for me because here I was, I graduated. I was always a little bit young, and I started kindergarten when I was 4. So I graduated college when I was 21. And so here we are, we start this company, and in the beginning, it's just the two of us. And I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do. I've never done anything, blah, 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 blah. And my dad would say, I can't tell you exactly where we're going. All I know is we got to this is where we get to the next step. I'm going to get us to here. And then when we're here, then I'll be able to see a little bit more clearly, and we'll get there. Right. So that was really probably the first big lesson that I learned. But then, after you've been running it for a little while, some things change. I moved and kind of decided I want to leave and then come back. But here I was 26 years old, and he wasn't even really involved in the company anymore.
Right.
And so I was running a company with 35 people. And I was 26 years old, and I was looked up to be the leader. And I was younger than most of the people that were working for me. And, I came home at the end of the day, and I was like, man, it's just a lot of pressure. I mean, we dealt with so many different things because we started doing lots of volume and stuff. And so I left that, and I said, I don't think I ever want to do that again. I don't want to build a big team. I just want to do my thing and do something small. And so I think that probably the best thing you can do is figure out what it is that you really, really like. Yeah. And at that point in time, management was not what I really liked. But there was a big part of the business that I think that this is crucial for almost any business. And what I really liked was the technology aspect of it. Like thinking through, like, okay, what's the process that we need to do this? How are we going to track that? And I ended up I started to develop databases for small businesses. And I wasn't really a programmer. We were using a program that was called FileMaker Pro, and it used to be owned by a subsidiary of Apple called Claris, and then they turned it into it's kind of like Microsoft Access.
I think I remember it.
Yeah. It's very, very popular, and it was really, really strong because you could build almost anything you want, and it would work on both Macs and PCs. So I got to the point where I learned that thing inside and out. And then something happened. Things started changing, and I saw where no longer was it just going to be networked in your office, It's like, hey, everything's going worldwide. I mean, back then it was the World Wide Web, the
Yes.
WWW, the internets. And I was like, man, I really need to figure out how to start making these databases where they will work online. And so now I started to study coding, because up until then, it's like I understood the logic behind it, the point and click, the scripting and everything. But then now it came down to the code, right? You have to write code in order for it to work on the web. And I used to, if anybody's ever done any coding, they can relate to this. There's really two types of coders, maybe three. One is a very beginner. Second is the one that's always going out and looking for examples to copy and modify the code. And that's what I was doing. And then the third one are people, they just write code. They just type. It's like they're talking, And so I kind of had this, I guess maybe an epiphany. And I said, I don't think that I'm ever going to be to the point where I'm just going to be able to do all of this. And I said, I found there were a lot of programmers out there that would write great code, but they were just waiting because they didn't know what code to write. And I said, man, I understand consumer behavior. I understand what types of tools people want, what they need. And it's like, I just need to hire some people to start doing this. And WishList Member was not my first online software project. So I'm going to step back and say, it was always about information marketing. And so my information marketing was actually another form of it. It was like, I want to build tools that help people solve a specific problem. And my first big tool that I sold of my own was a piece of software that converted videos into online video that you could play on a web page. And it was like this is like 2004. It was the year that video was going mainstream online because bandwidth was starting to get up there. And there was a product out there and people are like, yep, that's the one I use, but it's like, man, it's super complicated to use. So I created one. I actually hired some people and said, this is what I wanted to do. I want the interface to be super simple, super streamlined.
Mm-hmm.
And then we built this thing and it was called the FLV producer. And so it was based off of Flash video because at the time, that was the winner. Like 99% of all computers could play Flash. And so I had a really good run with that. I sold it for a very long time. And it was all started around the same time when there was this little company that said, hey, we're gonna build a system where you can host your videos for free. But everybody can see them. And they have to be less than 10 minutes. And I think you know what I'm talking about, YouTube.
Of course.
Lots of stuff has changed. But yeah, so I guess I was always interested in tools and just figuring out what people wanted and needed and try to make it easy for them to use. I like taking complicated stuff and trying to dumb it down and make it simple for the rest of the people.
So meanwhile, while you're creating this program that converts your videos, what is happening to the business that you had started with your dad?
Oh, that's a good question. So I didn't answer that. So dial back just a bit. And because I was 26 with 35 employees with tons of stress, we had an opportunity to sell the business. And my first thought was, I don't think I want to sell this business. I mean, we're doing pretty well, making some good money. And then I kind of came to my senses and I was like, wait a minute, this would be the opportunity for me to turn it over to somebody else and then just move forward and follow maybe in the direction of something that I wanted to do, So, but I learned so much from that. And, there's always like little projects that work, little projects that don't work.
Great. So moving on from you've started this program that converts video. So how did you end up then working on WishList? I mean, what was that moment you thought, you know what, I need a piece of software that solves this problem?
Yeah, so I think that people are always asking maybe some form of that question, in the sense that, how did you just know? Okay. And so it basically kind of went down like this. When I told you about building the piece of software to convert video,
Yeah.
I recognized that right then everybody was talking about video. And they were like, well, here's the challenge. I mean, we started that before YouTube, but then even when YouTube came along, they had certain challenges that some people said, well, I want to keep the videos private. So now you're starting to say, where do I fit in? Like, what's my niche, right? And so when you see kind of a trend, like what I said already, the trend right now is online education,
Yes.
online information. You know, people aren't necessarily, I mean, you saw Harvard did an announcement where they're doing all the next semester, I think, online, but it's still $53,000, right? And so I think people are going to start to say, like, well, what's the difference between me learning something from an institution
Yeah.
at that rate, or learning it from an expert that all they did was teach me that one specific thing? So when I started to see that trend, it was also at the same time that we started to see the trend of WordPress happening. You know, and when we first built WishList Member, we didn't build it from the standpoint that it was only going to be for WordPress. We recognized two trends. One was people are starting to talk about membership sites, and we can get into that a little bit more a little bit later. But the thing when they said membership sites back then, it was really like, how do you create recurring revenue? Okay. And so all these people are saying, okay, we want to build a membership site. And then we keep hearing all this stuff about WordPress. WordPress has themes. So then all of a sudden, boom, you can add a theme and
Yeah.
makes your site look pretty. And then there's plugins, and you can add a plugin and instantly it adds all this functionality. It was still a very young ecosphere, I guess you would call it.
Mm-hmm.
But we would recognize the trend, and we're like, man, you start to see enough people ask, and like, how do I do this? I want to build a membership site. I would like to use WordPress. And at that time, there were really only two really serious viable solutions. One of them was not WordPress based at all. It was just a complete different platform. And it was also very expensive. It was, I think it was around $4,000 to get started.
Wow.
They would get you up and going. Then they would charge you every month for the hosting. And there was very little that you could change about it. The other solution was a piece of software that had been around for a long time. It's actually still around today. It's called Member.
Oh,
And Member, you've probably seen it. And the thing about Member, it was a good piece of software. And so I would never knock it, because, you know, I actually bought it, I think like in 98 or something like that. But by and large, it was mostly built for people that wanted to run sites, building them in HTML. That's the way the whole thing was configured.
yep.
And so they're like, well, wait a minute, I want to use WordPress. They're like, oh, okay, you can use this with WordPress too. You got to do this hack. And it was super complicated to do. And you start to hear enough people say something's really complicated, and you're like, there's a problem that needs a solution.
Yes.
And so that was kind of I guess that was sort of my pattern. I'm always looking for a problem and how could I come up with a better solution. And I have to give credit to a really good friend of mine who he and I had been friends, and we kind of started in the internet marketing industry at the same time. Met him at a live event, and his name is Stu McLaren.
Mhm.
And so Stu, he was just like, from the moment that I met him, he's about 10 years younger than me. And he was just like, he was almost like right out of college. Well, he's Canadian, so he'd say I was right out of university, right?
Right.
And you can just spot certain people are just action takers. And so he and I just really formed a good friendship and relationship along the way. And then I had been doing some software, and in that gap that was in between the video FLV producer and WishList Member, I was actually just I was trying to figure out what my next big project was. I mean, I was trying this, I was trying to see where were the trends going, and he and I talked. We saw each other at another live event,
Mhm.
and he's like, "Man, I got tons of ideas." And he was big on WordPress, and the main thing was that he himself was facing the exact same problem. And he said, I want to start a membership site. And he had a concept of what he wanted to do. And it was a great idea.
Yeah.
And he was complaining. And I said, well, why don't you just build your own solution? And he's like, I don't think you're hearing me. I'm complaining about how hard it is to do this.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly going to be able to build it myself, And I said, well, I mean, I've already got a team at that time. I had kind of built my way up where I had established a full-time team.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're looking for the next big thing that we wanted to work on. And truth be told, Mac, I really did not know that WishList Member was going to be as big as it actually was, because we were building the tool really for ourselves. Because back then, I've shared this with some other people. When you start to look at trends, really the trend with WordPress was themes. I mean, there were some companies that were just getting big, and there was this company out of South Africa, and they had like a little ninja guy,
Yeah.
and it was called Woo Themes.
Yes.
And
yes, I remember that.
It was like $20 a month. Now you could buy their themes a la carte, and you got lifetime access, but it was either $15 or $20 a month. You could get a new theme every single month, and they just kept cranking them out. And Stu's idea was, let's be the first monthly plugin company, because there really were no clear patterns of premium plugins. It was mostly just the free ones and stuff. And so we said, okay, great. That sounds like a good idea. In order to do that, what are we going to run our platform on? So we built WishList Member so that we could run the membership. And that's where it started. And then it started spreading word of mouth and stuff like that. So.
Wow. I mean, that's a great journey. I mean, looking at how it got started, because WishList Member is one of the first plugins that I've actually used. I mean, back in the day, I think I started using it in 2009, 2010, around about that time.
Yeah, we came out in 2008.
Yeah.
And I think you were probably like shortly after that, a year and a half, 2 years.
Yes, yes. Very, very powerful plugin. I mean, I was also trying to sell stuff online behind a membership website. So I go way back with WishList Member. So yeah, it's a fantastic.
That's always cool for me to hear.
So it is a fantastic story, and it's amazing. And also you mentioned Stu. I used to see him because back then I think he was the face, I mean, if I'm correct, of WishList Member. I didn't get to see you though at that time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point. So I mentioned that Stu and I met at a conference,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of an interesting story, because I was actually a speaker at that conference, and it was, I had sold things before, and it was the first time I was selling something. It was actually an information product that I had created. I had sold a lot of things that I had not created from stage.
Yeah.
And you're super nervous when you're doing something for the first time. And sure enough, he was in that first group of people, and he was one of my first customers. And so like when I sold him the product, you know, we followed up, and then we started talking, and I was like, you know, this is a guy that I can form a friendship with, you know.
Mhm.
And you know, he ended up coming back to another one of our events and stuff like that. And then what happened was I think that something along the way, growing up with my dad being a public speaker, and then my brother also became a public speaker, and then I was kind of on that track
Yeah.
to do that more and more full time. And I, you know, I was good at it, but I was very different. Everybody has their own personality, and I had kind of more of like a relatable, down to earth. But at the end of the day, I was kind of like, it's not really my biggest passion, you know? Like I actually would be totally fine with us building this company and everybody knew the name of the brand, WishList Member, and I'm totally okay with Stu being the front guy, and I'll work to make it grow. And so I kind of just took a back seat, and it was, I guess it was just convenient because he loved it, and he just kept getting better and better and better at it. And then one day I saw him like speaking. Actually, I saw him speaking at a seminar prior to us starting that company, and I was just like, my goodness, he has just improved so much because he loved doing it. And when you love doing something, you just keep getting better and better and better. And so for me, it was like, hey, it's just convenient. And so then, you know, down the road, about 6 years in, Stu decided to leave and sell his portion of the company, and just kind of has gone out on his own. And he's, I don't know if you're listening to this and you haven't heard of him, you should look him up. I mean, he creates great content. He teaches people about how to run, grow membership sites. Just a phenomenal guy. But now it put me back and saying, okay, it's time to kind of come out from behind the magic curtain, you know, like in the Wizard of Oz. So I've been spending a lot of time just working really to, you know, grow WishList Member to where we want it to go. And now I'm trying to do a little bit more getting out there so that people are starting to become more familiar with me.
Cool. Now, there was a time, because obviously WishList Member has been out there for, for a very long time. There seems to be a time where things were kind of stagnant. I mean, is that correct to say that? Because I didn't see a lot of innovation, you know, coming out of WishList Member until I came across the promotion on AppSumo. That's when I thought, whoa, okay, WishList Member. I mean, of course, because you've been out there for a very long time, I recognize the branding, the name, and everything. And can you explain what happened between that time? Why was there like a time where nothing much was happening? Oh,
yeah. Boy, how much time do you got? I'm just kidding. So yeah, I mean, it's a totally fair question, and it's an important one for people to ask, especially if they're maybe trying to establish their own company, and or a project. And what I've found, Mac, is I've done a whole bunch of stuff, right? And so it doesn't always work, you know? And one of the most difficult things in the world when starting a business or a successful project is to establish momentum. And so many times it's hard to get that momentum going. And kind of the formula that I told you about searching for a problem, it doesn't always have to be like this magical thing, like this is the biggest problem in the world. You should have to recognize a problem. But then once you do, and then you come up with a good solution, you have to let people know about it. And then that's when you start to get the momentum going. And then the more momentum will facilitate more and more growth. But
Yes.
when you do that, something important happens that you have to take note of. And that is, you start to feel good about what you've done, and you start to take on this, I don't know if the right word is maybe an air of confidence, but there's this feeling, well, if we did that, we can do anything, you know, and we can do that, you know, and we can do this, and then we could do this. And so suddenly you're starting and you're very focused and you're establishing the momentum, and then something else comes along and now you start to divide your way. And you're like, okay, well, we did that with this. And this is growing. So let's do this and we'll grow those. Now we'll have two things that are growing. So along the way, we got a little bit sidetracked in a couple of different things. One thing was, I always believed, and I still believe this, if you're able to establish a brand and a company where people know, like, and trust you, then they are going to be willing to buy something else from you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's a fair statement.
Yep.
As long as it's something that they need and you prove to them that you have a good solution. Mm-hmm. So all along the way, I kept thinking, well, what do these other people need? And, you know, they needed themes. They might need a support ticket system. And so, you know, we started, okay, I spent so much time on how could we build our own support system. And then we teamed up with some people to actually do that. And we spent a long time getting it going. And then it was a great system, but we didn't really have our complete full focus on it. Right. But what it was doing was it was distracting me from WishList Member. We also were building another add-on product, and that was, again, distracting us from WishList Member. And then finally, I mentioned the reason that we built WishList Member was that we wanted to be the first monthly plugin company. Mm-hmm. And so what we ended up doing was we did do that, and we launched a membership site of our own, and it was called WishList Insider. Yep. And part of that, the initial offering was that every month we're going to give you content, we're going to give you training, but we're also going to create a new plugin every month. And we were knocking them out. I mean, we were doing some pretty cool stuff, which you probably remember.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then all of a sudden, you get to the point where it's a grind, man. And it's like plugin after plugin after plugin once a month. And it turned into a situation where we were cranking out a mediocre plugin. And the day it was released, we got to really shift gears to get started working on the next mediocre plugin. And at that point in time, people were starting to see that trend that I said that we had already noticed. And it was like, man, this membership thing and WordPress is not going anywhere. Let's just go all in for WordPress. Because we did have some competitors when we came out. There were some systems that also came out close to the same time as us. Where we were real different was that our plugin was really kind of native to WishList Member. We built it so that we could put it on another platform, but the other ones, kind of like what I described with A-Member was not built for WordPress. It was built for an HTML site, and you could make it work with WordPress. So that was a kind of our big differentiating factor. But now other people are starting to say, wait a minute, I know WordPress and I know what people are asking for, and I'm going to just like really, really focus on it. And around that same time, WordPress was changing. They were releasing new things like custom post types,
Yeah.
taxonomies, all these things. And here we were, like, not really focused on the main thing that made our company what it was.
Yeah.
And it was a big, hard lesson for me to learn, you know?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I can see because when I was in the WishList Insider, I could see all those plugins because I signed up for it, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Wow, how is this team cranking out all these plugins?" It was amazing.
It was hard, I'm going to tell you.
So,
And it was challenging because I wasn't blind to what was going on. You know, it wasn't like I was being naive, but in some ways I was being naive. And you know, I said, man, some things are going to have to change. And so we shifted gears a little bit, and we said, okay, we're not going to do a plugin every month. We're going to shift gears, maybe one every other month. And then the off month, Stu might create a course for us. And then when he decided to leave, it was an interesting time because we were about to do a new release, and it had some additional features and some things, but we were getting into a really bad situation because we had we kind of started that with no real good examples. Now, I'll tell you, I was talking about Woo themes before.
yeah.
There was also this little company that I was just telling everybody, like, oh my goodness, these guys are absolutely crazy. And if you have not seen this, you better go look at Elegant Themes. They were doing the same thing,
Yep.
and they were charging like $19 per year, and
Yes.
you got all of their themes.
Yes.
They're like, no, we're not going to give you one a month. We're just going to keep these themes, and we're going to keep making them better. And from the get-go, you're going to be on an annual plan. And I'm like, these guys are absolutely insane. Like, that they're going to give me all of this, and they're only going to charge me $19 per year.
Yes.
And so if you look back, you know, I never was big on history, but man, history is fascinating now because you can see what happened in the past, and you can help you guide you in the future. And now they don't charge $19 a year. It's more, and it's still very, very reasonable per year. But
Oh yeah.
the whole WordPress industry has really shifted to annual plans.
Yes.
And so that's what was kind of exciting. So I know I'm getting off track a little bit, but at that time when Stu left, I had a lot of things that we kind of had to clean up. I want to make sure that I don't say that in a way. It's not that he left us with a mess. That's not what I'm saying. It's just we started a company with no clear guidance of what the industry standards were. And so we had a business model that was based on, we'll charge you buy the license, then you get the updates until we release our next major version.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that was like, you know, 2, sometimes 3 years. So we had some changes where we had to make it time-based, and that had a lot of work that we needed to do on our whole licensing system. And then we also faced a huge, huge challenge where we had a really good customer base, and I knew what they were wanting. They kept asking for different things, and every time we would add a new feature, it would kind of make the whole process a little bit more complicated, you know? And I knew deep down in my heart, in order to really fix this thing, we're going to have to just not start over from scratch. It probably would have been easier to start over from scratch, but we did start over from scratch in terms of the interface.
Yeah.
We just designed it a complete overhaul to make the user experience better. But at the same time, we were trying to make the whole database backwards compatible. And man, it was a huge undertaking. And all along the way, you know, I was seeing reviews exactly like what you said. You know, these guys used to be the #1 player, and now they're no longer innovative. And I had to just like bite my tongue, because I knew, hey, we're about to come out with a vengeance. Like, I mean, we started the thing, and I recognize that our competitors are strong, but we're going after something that's going to be totally different. And we were really rebuilding that thing to be a framework so that I could easily and consistently add new features and updates and things along the way. And so, man, it's been super exciting. And I'll address what you said about seeing us on AppSumo.
Yeah.
I faced a really difficult time personally, because I never thought it was going to take us 2.5 years to rebuild WishList Member, but it did, and we just kept pushing and kept pushing. And then when it was time for it to come out, I mean, man, Mac, I was like on dead empty. I don't know if you've ever felt like that, but like
Yes,
I had no gas in my tank. And so sorry about that. Evidently my light just battery powered light went out, so I'm probably a little bit darker now, so sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
So we kept pressing through, and so we had the opportunity to release a promo with AppSumo, and I had been on the fence for that sort of thing for a long time, because I didn't know if that's the right thing, the right path for a software company. And now I believe 100% it was the right thing to do, because it wasn't about us trying to make a bunch of money with AppSumo. It was about reestablishing who we were as a brand. And man, within days, I had old reviews that were rewritten. I saw reviews like you, and it's like, I wish that I had a video camera running like this right now when I first saw your review. And it's because of the poster image, the thumbnail. And it was just like, I saw it, and your face was like,
shocked.
like shocked. And man, I saw that, and I just like, I got a huge grin on my face when I saw that. So
you know, when it comes to reviews, I don't do a lot of reviews, but when I do them, I'm very thorough with reviews. So when I came across it, I went all in with an open mind, because I hadn't spoken to you. I didn't even know about you, to be honest. So I just thought, you know what? I've used this product before. Let me talk about it, and let's see what has changed. And wow, I was amazed. And that was a turning point. And in fact, I would like to say you did the right move to go with AppSumo at the time, because how else would we know that you had a sort of like a new launch of WishList Member? I think that'll be very difficult, because we will just assume that it's the old WishList Member that hasn't been updated. So when I started reviewing WishList Member, I mean, the first thing that I saw was the UI, totally different. And I was able to go through the whole UI in my review and build a very quick membership website in a very short space of time. And that was my turning point, because I was also struggling with trying to create a website that had a membership capability. So I kept on changing plugins, because one thing that I hate is having a system running on your site, which you have to constantly manage. You know what I mean? I like setting up things, get them automated. It's good. You know what I mean? So when I started playing around with WishList Member, I was like, wow, this is it. And to this point, I'm actually running it on my website. So you've done it.
I love that.
You've done it.
I love that. And I appreciate you saying that. And so in the beginning, when we were first getting it out to people, this was before AppSumo,
Yep.
We went through a beta trial and stuff, and I knew that we had something, because we worked on it for so long, and like every last detail we went to, and so there was even a recent review where they didn't do a completely thorough job of reviewing it, and they called us out, and it was like, this doesn't even make sense. I go to search, and I can't even search by membership level. And I kind of had to do a little bit of a rebuttal, and I was like, well, it wouldn't really make sense for us to have you search by membership level if you only have one membership level. What are you trying to filter them out from?
Yeah.
But as soon as you have two, now we actually add that in. So there's little things like that. And I know this is probably one of the biggest things that may have held us up, and I believe it was worth it. And I know your site, and you sell a lot of courses. And so each course becomes a different membership level, right? So if you have access to this membership level, you have access to this course.
Yes.
And so what I recognized is, this is from dealing with thousands and thousands of customers. This is very common. And so we had built things in a way where a lot of our settings were on a global level, which is still the case for a lot of other plugins. And so now you're saying, so you mean to tell me I can have 50 different membership levels, but every one of them has to get the same welcome email? And all I can do is put in a merge code that says you sign, like, that's the way things used to be. And I was like, we can't do that. So we had to restructure things in a way that it created the flexible system. And then I just saw that it was, as it was going on, and you're questioning yourself, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? It's taking too long. And finally you're like, wow, this impacts this in a way that I never really thought it through. But maybe it goes back to where I had that early experience understanding database structure, and I knew that what was changing. And so since that first release with 3.0, now we're on like 3.5 and about to do 3.6. We're doing more consistent updates, and we're just doing a ton of other stuff. Hey, I want to say one thing real quick about the AppSumo deal. And because this is important, we spent just a little bit of time talking about that. And there was a point in time when I had sort of like an aha moment. And part of it, I think this is a good lesson for people. You really kind of have to pay attention to a lot of stuff, because you never know when you're going to have that one little thing that is going to make a big impact on you and your business like 10 years later. So I buy a ton of stuff, right? I mean, like, I buy so many WordPress plugins because I want to see how their sales process works. I've got subscriptions, and so what I started doing was, I found out I'm a Mac user. And way back in the day, they started these Mac bundles, and I think the first one might have been called Mac Heist, Heist. I think that was the first one. I don't know, but the simple concept was you paid $50 and you got like 10 different Mac apps, and it was just a steal. And I just struggled with it so much. Like, how did they make this happen? I can't even wrap my head around it. And then later I saw like some of the follow-up publicity. And the guy said, one of the CEOs of the company, he's like, you're right. We gave away like 50,000 copies of our software. I mean, it was some insane number.
Wow.
But you know, they didn't have to pay. It's like if you're going to run an ad during the Super Bowl, you're going to pay like $2 million
Yes.
for right. And it was the equivalent of doing that. And they said, basically, we used our software as collateral to get the exposure that's practically impossible to buy. And that's when that moment I was like, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
And it took new software applications and instantly turned them into established brands. And so I knew we weren't a brand new company and we were a recognized brand, but we needed a new identity. We needed to get that recognition from people. And so that's why when I had the opportunity, I was like, this is it. This is our time.
Amazing. Amazing. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about some of the success stories that you've heard of people using membership websites and how they've managed to create a business online.
Yeah, that's I love talking about that. You know, for me as a product owner and a product developer, I think that, you know, you can, one of the, I guess, most gratifying things is when you see your tool put to good use and you're like, man, I never even would have thought about that, you know? And when we built WishList Member originally, we thought that we knew how everybody was going to use it. And we built it in a way where you could have one membership level.
Yeah.
And it was intended to, we thought everybody's going to do the same thing. They're going to take monthly recurring payments. And so still to this day, a lot of people think the definition of a membership site is monthly recurring revenue. And that's not it at all. You know, I already talked about Elegance Themes and Divi, and they have annual plans. So now there's monthly recurring revenue, there's annual recurring revenue. Then there are other people, like let's just say a church or a public organization, and they're saying, well, we're not going to charge people access for this, but we need to have it behind a username and password login so that it's just not exposed to the world. And so we've got all kinds of things like that. So some of my favorite stories are hearing, you know, like well-known authors that I had actually seen their books and even read a book, and then later come to find out it's like, oh, wow, they just bought our software. And that's happened to me a number of times. A couple specific examples. One specifically is a real good friend of mine. He works with his wife. His name's Tristan Truscott. It's Tristan and Sabrina Truscott. And they have this thing called the Satori method. And so they're into like mindful meditation and, you know, like dojo ninja type stuff, right?
Yeah.
And they have so much different content. It's hard to remember everything that they do. And I met him again at a live event, and Stu and I were actually speaking at that event. And, you know, it was about internet marketing, and we were talking about membership sites. And Tristan and Sabrina recognized that we knew enough about what we were talking about, and we had an offer at the event, and they purchased that. And you know, he, from the very beginning, is like, you could tell he's like, man, this is what I've been waiting for. And it's like everything went as planned.
Wow.
We knew there's people that have this problem. We've created a tool that's a solution. Now let's put it in your hands and let's get you to start using it. And they just took action. And I remember him telling me later, he's like, man, that decision to get that was the first thing that we did to break through that 6-figure a year business. And this is a
Wow.
long time ago. And over the years, he and I have established a really good friendship and relationship. And now, you know, WishList Member is a core integral part of their business. And they're no longer a 6-figure a year business. I mean, it's like 7 figures for multiple years for a while, because this was all the way back like in 2010. So you've got stories like that are really exciting and motivating to me. And then I have another friend, and his name is Dave Curley.
Uh-huh.
And he was actually, I met him at a live event too. He was actually working at our live event doing the recording. One of my friends that was promoting the whole event knew him from a relationship, and he was like, he had been working with some people to do their video stuff, and it was just at the end of that, he was in transition mode. And he's like, man, you know, our event was about membership sites. And he's like, I want to make my own membership site. Like, I got to do this thing. And so we got him set up using WishList Member. And his background was teaching churches how to record their services. And he built a monthly membership site about training the tech guy. Because a lot of times smaller churches, they don't have a full-time person, and it's like, who's supposed to know how to do this? So he recognized the problem and provided a solution. And what's so cool about that is that he's been doing it for a long time, and now, I mean, the timing's great for somebody like that, because everybody was going to like, oh, well, now how do we broadcast our services and stuff like that? So there's just little things like that are great stories, and you know, we get people writing in all the time. And it's just fun. Like another guy that I met actually came through the AppSumo deal. His name is Angel, and he has a site that teaches people how to play the guitar, which is not necessarily all that unique. I mean, is a big market, but his niche is it's in Spanish, and so it's like, stuff like that's just really cool.
Wow.
You know, when you hear people using your tools for cool things like that.
No, that's amazing. I guess once I hit my first 6 figures, I'll be contacting you soon as well.
All right, that won't be long. I know it.
Cool. Okay, so let's talk about, in fact, before we talk about the opportunities that you can go into online with WishList Member, let's step back a bit and talk about just the industry itself, because I'm sure you've also come across a lot of videos talking about fake gurus and is it possible to make money online? I mean, what do you have to say regarding that?
Well, I think the situation, Mac, is that there are so many ways to make money online. I mean, it's just like, this is really like the best time ever. I mean, I could have said that 10 years ago, but it keeps getting better and better and better, because there's so many different ways and it becomes so much easier. Unfortunately, a lot of times people start to believe that they have to be somebody that they're not. And like, if you think that the only way to make money online is to teach other people how to make money online, and you've never made any money online, somebody somewhere down the road told you a really, really, really big lie. And it's unfortunate. I'm not gonna not, like, a lot of people, they say, you know, oh, all these gurus. I mean, a lot of those guys are my friends. I've known them for a long time. And I can tell you that those guys know internet marketing inside and out.
Right.
It's the challenge is when people are up and coming and they see those guys teaching internet marketing, and they think that's what I saw, so that's what I have to do. And man, you know, we talked about earlier how I was kind of behind the scenes a lot, and I didn't really care about me personally getting the credibility.
Yeah.
One of all these people that I say, you know, are marketing gurus, that I say are my friends. This is such a interesting point in internet marketing history, and I don't have the exact date. A question similar to this came up at an internet marketing conference, and somebody was basically asking the same thing, like, because they were trying to go down that path.
Yeah.
And then there was, you know, when you have the mics and people walk up, and then there was another guy who kind of like answered a question, and most everybody had no idea who he was, except for all the internet marketing gurus. And I knew him too. And they were all like, that guy is probably one of the smartest guys in this room, and nobody knows who he is. And you know what he was selling? Internet marketing. He wasn't selling information marketing. He was selling things like coat hangers. At the time, like all the new stuff, like before Amazon was like mostly books,
Yeah.
and people were like, I need to buy these things in bulk, you know? And like since that time, you've got a lot of really smart people who have taken note to that, and hence the rise in e-commerce, right? And I mean, WooCommerce has changed the world. And so it now becomes Shopify and WooCommerce. And I'm seeing kids like, you know, 18 to 21 that are selling millions of dollars online.
Yep.
And they're not claiming to be marketing gurus. They figured out how to do internet marketing, and they're just getting products that people want to buy. It's really not that complicated. So I think that situation is a little bit unfortunate when people do become like the rise of, I guess, fake gurus. And I'm not, I can't really put my hand on it, other than people, they just weren't exposed to the real truth, that there's a lot of ways to make money, and you don't have to do something dishonest in order to make money online.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's tarnishing the business model, the online business model, because a lot of people are thinking it's impossible now to make money online. And I was one of those people too. At one point, I thought to myself, nah, it's not possible to make money online. But like you said, like earlier on, it does take a lot of work. I mean, you have to put in so much, because if it was that easy, everyone would be millionaires, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah. You know, I'm going to go back to I'll tell you a little story. Early on, when I was kind of in transition between the FLV producer and some of my other smaller projects in WishList Member, I started doing some work with a friend of mine, and they were selling goods online, not necessarily information products, but hard goods, right? And so I took it as an experience, a learning experience, and Stu called me out, and he said, okay, if that's what you're going to do, make sure that you pay attention, and what are you trying to learn? And so shortly after, we had this conversation, and he said, so what have you learned? And I said, this is pretty interesting. It's like, I pretty much learned that you get paid when you show up to play. And what I meant was, you don't have to be dishonest. You just have to do it. And not everything is going to be a runaway success. A lot of things is like, hey, you tried to sell something that people aren't really looking for. But when you find stuff that people are really looking for, and it's really kind of a simple formula, you know, they talk about traffic plus conversion, you know, equals sales. It's like, my dad taught me this thing, is like, a confused mind always says no, you know? So were they able to find out that you had a solution to their problem? And then were you able to convince them that your solution was right for them? And if you do, they're going to buy it. It doesn't really matter. Like, it could be something about back pain, you know, it could be something about weight loss. I mean, it's anything, as long as you find out what they want and you can say, this is right for you.
That's amazing. And also, you know, you mentioned earlier on that the time we're living in right now with the situation with this global pandemic, I would agree with you 100% that this is the time where education is going online. I mean, I was speaking to my son the other day and he was saying to me, well, Dad, I won't be going to campus most of the time. We're just going to go in for practicals. So the rest of it is going to be online. So the way I look at things going is, it's going to be a norm to learn online. And for anyone who has a skill or an expertise in some sort of area, this is the moment to create a membership website and just put that content behind that membership website and just serve that community. I mean, that's how I see it. I mean, is that the way you see things as well?
I totally agree. And, you know, the more and more I work with more people trying to start and grow a membership site, I become more and more convinced. It's like, find out what that niche is that you want to be involved in and show up and start playing. You know, another lesson I learned from my dad when I was pretty young, he said, that's like winking at your girlfriend in the dark. It's like, hey, I just winked at you, but you didn't see it, right? So does it really count? And so I'm saying is, like, once you decide that this is what I'm going to do, you just keep pushing forward. And, you know, the people that I found become successful are the people that just keep going and don't stop. You know, there's a difference. I mean, there's a lot of good information about there, knowing when you have to pivot. And saying, maybe I've been working on something that's not necessarily the right product or project, which I've done many times before. But bottom line is, you know, did you do everything that you needed to do in order to get the first sale? And usually the answer for most people is like, I didn't actually do everything I had to do. You know? And I think that's the #1 differentiator.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, so let's shift gears a bit and focus back on WishList Member. I mean, right now I've played around with it. It has, I mean, the UI, as you mentioned, has changed. And also the integrations are amazing. You know, it's phenomenal. So let's talk about the future of a WishList Member. I mean, what can we expect in the short term and also in the long term, if you don't mind sharing it?
Well, that's completely top secret, Max, so I can't share anything with you. I'm just kidding. You know, sometimes you do want to be a little bit guarded because you don't want to give your competitors like the upper hand on what all you're working on. But I'm pretty open on that. And I believe that there's kind of a transition in the online space.
Right.
And it says, basically, I think that most people want to get best of class tools. And so what I'm saying is, we've really been working hard on WishList Member. We want it to be the best membership plugin it possibly can, membership solution. So if somebody says, well, does it have an affiliate program? Like, nah, we don't have an affiliate program, but we might build one, and it's not really our focus. I think that most people are saying, hey, I want to use something like iDev Affiliate or Affiliate WP. And because those guys, that's all they're doing. They're completely focused on affiliate programs. And so my thing is, like, let's start to build out integrations for people like that, for systems like that, rather than me just trying to come out with like a watered down, just to say that I checked the box that I have an affiliate tracking module. I'd rather you have like the best possible experience with the tool that you're looking for. And so one of that kind of brings us to payments. Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of times people make decisions for their entire business based on their payment system.
Right.
Okay. And a good example is Thrivecart. They're very well known with internet marketers, and then also like WooCommerce and things like cart flows and stuff like that. And they're like, well, I've already decided on that, so can you work with that? And I'll just tell you, WooCommerce is something that we overlooked for a long time. There were some solutions out there, and I knew that we had to get 3.0 done in order for us to do that. And so then when we came out, I started to see like, okay, man, WooCommerce opens the doors for you to do all kinds of things. They have integrations with like 50 different payment providers that are things like Razorpay in India, and like all kinds of internet or payment providers overseas that I would never be able to create an integration for every one of those. Okay. But I am completely focused on saying, I recognize that that one decision for you is really important. So how can I make our system become best of class in terms of membership and still let you use something like Razorpay? Because you're from India. It's just like that there, and I'm just using that one because it comes up a lot. There are things like eWay in Australia, and I don't want to take a situation and say, no, you have to use our payment system.
Yeah.
So you mean now I have access to Thrivecart, but I can't use WishList Member because Thrivecart doesn't have a membership system, right? Yeah. They follow what they're saying. Hey, we're great at doing your shopping cart, and we have an affiliate thing. And so that's really my vision on that is let's get people to be able to use the tools that they want, and let's make them work as flexible as possible. And you've seen the rise of things like Zapier, where, you know, you can take information from one system and send a zap over to another system where those two systems couldn't talk together before.
Yep.
When we released the major change to 3.0, we came out with our integration with Zapier. Since then, we've added multiple email systems, more payment providers. We added WooCommerce since then. We've added webhooks. Webhooks means incoming and outgoing. And just so if you're not familiar with that, what that means, it's kind of like saying, hey, you've got this other system and I don't really know what they do, but I'll send a webhook and I'll just pass this data. And now they probably have a webhook so that you can take that data and do stuff. So there's lots of things like that. And that's really kind of our focus right now, to do more integrations like that. There are two, I guess, payment providers that we do have built in. Probably, I'd say I was going to say one's more popular than the other, but they're both very popular. PayPal and Stripe. Yeah. And so we're in the midst of, we're just on the cusp of a new release that enhances our current Stripe integration. And I actually just saw it yesterday, and it's great. It adds a lot of, opens the door for a lot more flexibility. And then beyond that, I think we're going to probably rebuild the whole thing, and we're going to do it in a way that follows exactly that vision, so that you can use other tools to mesh with our tools. And so it's really exciting for us because especially when you see what you think is going to help people and then you start to see them using it, and that's super cool for me.
Oh, that's amazing. So I know we've spent quite a bit of time now on our podcast, so I guess we can round it off. So for those that want to know where to buy WishList Member or where to find you, can you tell the audience like where they can find the plugin and also even where to find you?
Yeah, so WishList Member, yeah, I mean, you could go to WishListMember.com. Right now that gets rerouted to member.wishlistproducts.com just because that's how we set it up with our company. You could go directly to wishlistproducts.com and then click on the big logo that says WishList Member. As far as me personally, you know, I'm on LinkedIn and I'm also on Facebook. And, you know, I haven't been like all that big on social media. I actually just started my Facebook account a little over a year because I'm usually just kind of in my office focused and dialed in on work. But I'm recognizing, I've always recognized when there's shifts in like the internet marketing and things like that. And whereas I put Facebook off for a long time because I just didn't really have, you know, a strong desire to keep up with every last person I went to high school with. I'm recognizing now more and more that it's just a necessary tool to be a business person. You know, go back to what I said about winking at your girlfriend in the dark. We've been working on this stuff for a long time, and even when we were working really hard, we weren't doing a good job of sharing all the stuff that we were working on. And so that's another one of our big focuses. And we just started a Facebook private group, and we haven't even announced it, and people are just finding it. So they're going and they're getting added there. And so, you know, right now we're dealing with a little bit of issues like with scaling because, you know, a lot of the volume's starting to pick up and starting to add new team members. And so that hopefully you'll be able to see my face out there more and some of our team members out there as well.
Awesome. Excellent. Now, before we finalize, is there anything else that you may want to say to the audience or, you know, anything you want to say about WishList Member that I haven't asked you?
Yeah, you know, Mac, first of all, I just want to say thanks for having me. I mean, it's a real honor to be here with you. I really love this whole world like of content, and that's how I found out about you when you did our review. Yeah. And then I've seen lots of your other videos, so I'm a fan. I subscribe, and I think that probably what I want to leave people with is I want to talk, because we did talk about this. I talked to a lot of people. A lot of them have been very, very successful, but then a lot of people are just really struggling to make it work and like just get it. It's like, I've tried all these things. Even back to where I shared that story about my friend Tristan and Sabrina. At that very same event, I met another guy, and he also took us up on the offer that we had at that event. And later, when we started to do some work with him, it just didn't work out, you know. And he came to tell me something. He said, you know, I've spent like $20,000 at various conferences, attending conferences, and doing stuff, and I've never even collected the first opt-in. And wow. It was at that point in time, I thought, there's a serious problem here. And I think that if I could boil it down to the most simple of terms, is many times people are trying to make things too complicated. I've seen people buy WishList Member and are like, oh, I want to build this site. I want to have bells and whistles. I want people to be able to take notes and then leave comments. And then I want to grade their performance and then blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, wait a minute. How about we take one piece of your content? Is that a video? Is it a PDF file? And let's put that piece of content. Then let's hook it up so that somebody can give you even $1 to buy that content. Just take the first action. And this is from a self-professed perfectionist. Okay. I mean, I'm a software builder. I'm like, we got to do this. We got to do this. We got to do this. So I fall into the same trap. But bottom line, if you're getting started, you have to take very small actions and just get to the point where, like, I think I heard a podcast and they were saying, you got to become comfortable with B- work. You can't always be aiming for an A+. Yeah. B- is good enough. And sometimes it's even a C. Like, just get anything done. And then maybe your first step is, I want to build a landing page. Then your next step is, I want to find out how to hook it up with my autoresponder. Mm-hmm. And then after that, then I want to run an ad and just do something. So that's the main thing I want to leave people with.
We've covered quite a lot on this podcast, and I'd like to also thank you so much for being on this podcast with me. I've learned a lot about you, personally, and also your stories. They've motivated me and also given me an insight to what it's like to have an online business. So I'd like to thank you so much for sharing that with me and also with the audience. So I guess we'll have another podcast soon, because I'm greedy, I want to hear all these stories.
Yeah, so we've got plenty more stories to share with you. So again, thanks for having me, Mac. I really appreciate it.
Oh, awesome. Take care, man. Cheers.